Alrighty, guys, welcome to episode 3 of the Fuck or Suck podcast. We have an extremely special guest here for you today, Mr. Rob Jones.
What's up, guys? It's great to be on the podcast.
Thanks so much for joining us today, brother. Man, we don't normally do introductions on this podcast. We normally just get straight into talking shit, but I kind of feel like we should be giving you an introduction, bro. But before we do get into it, man, just once again, I just wanted to say a massive thank you for taking the time out to speak to us today and share your story, bro, because it is absolutely incredible.
No, thank you guys for the opportunity to come talk to you. I mean, I'm honored to be on. You guys are huge. I'm a nobody, so you guys are doing me the favor.
Definitely not a nobody, bro, but to give people a bit of an idea of who Rob Jones is. So Rob is a former US Marine, and in the Marines, he was a combat engineer. Basically, he's the guy that walks towards IEDs, improvised explosive devices, and disarms them, or doesn't disarm them. No, you don't disarm them, do you, Rob? You check if they're there, and then you get. Oh, you sometimes disarm them?
In certain circumstances, you could, but generally not.
Generally, you get the EODs to come and disarm them, right?
That's right. Usually, you would call EOD, and they would come out and dispose of it.
Yeah, nice. But you're one putting yourself on the front line, so pretty much everyone else can walk away, right?
Yeah, it's exactly right. I would go through areas that we were pretty sure there would be an IED in there somewhere, and I would just plot a safe path through. And then everybody knew as long as they walked along my little path my little trail of breadcrumbs, they'd be good. They wouldn't have to worry about it.
Yeah, nice, man. So you were posted to Afghanistan, and tragically, when you were in Afghanistan, an IED found you before you found it, and it blew both of your legs off. And that left you an above the knee amputee. And man, after your recovery, that's absolutely incredible. You managed to run 31 full marathons in 31 days in 31 different cities, bro.
Yeah, man. 31 different cities, including London and also one in Toronto.
That's freaking amazing, bro. But not only that, bro, you managed to compete at the Paralympics in rowing. You won a bronze medal. And man, you even did a stint of stand-up comedy. Is that right?
I just found out about that.
Man,
yeah, a little bit. I did a documentary where I was doing some stand-up comedy, and yeah, I did some open mics for a while and that kind of stuff, but I haven't done it in a long time.
Yeah, man, that's epic. But you also managed to cycle across America as well, yeah?
Yeah, that was 2013, 2014. I rode from Bar Harbor, Maine to Camp Pendleton, California, which is diagonally across the U.S. It was about 5,100 miles. Took me about
That's incredible, bro.
180
So
days.
you did all of this as an above-the-knee amputee after having both of your legs blown off in Afghanistan. Man, if you could nail this down to one thing that allowed you to do all this after sustaining such an incredible injury, what would that be?
I think if I had to nail it down to just one thing, I would say it would be trying to be selfless, trying to do something for other people. So the way that I mean that is, I think part of the motivating factor for me to go to the Paralympics was it was something I was interested in. It was something I wanted to do, but I knew intrinsically that my family, my friends, my fellow Marines, they all kind of what they needed from me was to see that I was going to be able to have a good life, that I was going to be okay ultimately. And I thought the Paralympics would be a good way to show them by winning a medal at the Paralympics. I could show them that, look, I know you're worried, but I'm going to be fine. And the same thing with the bike ride. I wanted to raise money for veteran charities. I wanted to do something that nobody had done before. And then the month of marathons too. I wanted to put a positive story out there about veterans. I wanted there to be a story out there about a veteran that went overseas and experienced some trauma and came back, and it made him stronger because when I decided to do the monthly marathons, the perception of veterans was it seemed to be shifting towards us all being broken individuals, and I didn't want that to be the only story that people heard. So, in all three of those things, I was looking outwardly, trying to figure out how, from my position, how I could help other people. And when you do that, that is how you tap into the most powerful strength that a human being has to do these heroic things that you hear about in war and throughout life. Is all those people are looking for, out for other people. They're trying to help the people around them.
That's fucking badass, man.
And look, I mean, to go even further into that, I know that you've got the fuck with the lights on challenge going on, and anybody that is struggling with that, or if you're trying to lose weight, or you're trying to improve your fitness or whatever, if you can figure out a way that you can tap into that very powerful feeling about the people you care about the most in your life. For example, if you've got kids, I mean, you would lay your life on the line for your kids, you'd die for your kids. So if you can tap into that very powerful feeling and align it all the way back down to why I should get out of bed in the morning and go work out, or why I shouldn't eat this or I should eat that. If you can tap into that, if you can connect those two things, that's how you maintain the discipline to keep going in these arenas where you're trying to change yourself to
Yeah.
be better.
Absolutely.
Boom.
I
Fucking
love that.
boom.
Actually, Rob, that's a really good segue to kind of I guess take us into. I mean, obviously, we help people try and change their lives, obviously through fat loss, but along with
Yeah.
fat loss comes, so many other things that will by default start to improve across the life, right?
Yeah.
And obviously, your story is absolutely wild. It is listening to you speak. I've listened to the podcast. I'm actually waiting on the book as well. Matt told me it's a little scary. That's what he said.
The book?
Yeah.
Man, I didn't.
There's some tense
Right.
parts. There's some tense parts.
I'm going to be honest with you, Rob. When I read the first part in bed before I went to sleep, when you told the story of how you stepped on that IED, I didn't sleep too good.
That's why you needed that 10 milligram mega dose of melatonin you're talking about.
It made me go out and buy the strongest melatonin I could get my hands on, bro. Because when I read this shit, I mean, military, I've never been in the military, but I take a lot of motivation and I respect it so, so much. And whenever I try to put myself in a position, I try to live it as best as I possibly could as a reader. And I try to appreciate it, not just skim over it, but truly think about or try. I know I couldn't come close to the feeling, but to even try and put myself in that position and respect it of what you may have been feeling before you stepped on that IED and after you stepped on that IED when you described the whole world as going black and then you just looked up and you saw a tunnel of blue light into the sky. I would love for you to walk us through from when telling us that story. So reliving that story of like the day that you went out, if you're willing to discuss that with us, like the day you went out, the feeling before to the moment that you stepped on the IED and that feeling after when your fellow Marines, your brothers came and saved you after you stepped on that IED. Man, would you be willing
Yeah,
to
man.
share that story with us?
Yeah, so a little bit of backstory on our mission in Afghanistan. We were at a place called Sangin, and essentially all we were trying to do was take over some Taliban territory, which just meant that our entire battalion was going to mount up in vehicles, but also walking and just go north. And we were going to take over a bunch of mud compounds and do all this stuff. And the Taliban was going to try and shoot at us, and they're going to try and stop us, but there's nothing really they could do to stop us. We were just going to go and take over all their stuff. And so I was foot mobile. I was walking around with my squad of Marines, 13 Marines, and we were on the flank on the outside of the vehicle column that was going to the north, and we were just protecting it from ambush. So we were kind of mirroring it as they went up. We were just following along on the outside. And in the early afternoon of that day, we all halted around 1 o'clock and took a pause, got reoriented and that kind of thing, got a snack, drank some water, and we stood up to continue moving forward. And our point man actually stepped on an IED with this, like the second we started moving. And fortunately, the IED that he stepped on malfunctioned. So every IED in it has a blasting cap, which is about the half the size of this pen, and it's filled with very volatile explosives. So for whatever reason, just that blasting cap went off. Usually, blasting cap is inserted down into a big jug of ammonium nitrate or something. But and that's what initiates the bigger explosion. And for whatever reason, that blasting cap didn't, it didn't initiate the bigger charge. But what we knew was that the Taliban always put their IEDs in clusters because they knew that when somebody got hurt, we would come and get them. So they put them in, in clusters around each other, assuming that we would come and get the guy and they'd hit more people. So essentially, that became an area that was almost guaranteed to have another IED in there somewhere. So I said earlier, I found paths through areas that we were pretty certain there was going to be an IED. So I got out my metal detector and I started clearing a safe path through that area and marking it. And what I would do is just swing my metal detector back and forth in front of me, and I would just try and see. I would have to essentially build a theory about whether or not there was going to be an IED, and it would be beeping at me, it'd be buzzing the handle, it'd be making all these noises, and I would have to interpret all that feedback to try and figure out, is this a spot where I need to stop and investigate this, or can I keep going? And so I remember I was swinging my metal detector back and forth in front of me very slowly. I was taking these very small steps, and essentially I was teleported. I was essentially teleported from being upright, sweeping with my metal detector, to instantly just on my back. And my very first memory was, I just remember these piercing screams coming out of my mouth, and I remember this overwhelming, ringing in your ears. Movies get this pretty accurate with the ringing in the ears and the visceral reaction to this kind of an injury. So if you've seen a war movie, it's pretty similar. Um, but the interesting thing was, it was kind of like my conscious mind wasn't really present. It was like it had been retracted back, and it had been put into this protective cave, really deep down in my mind. And it was like my body was just reacting unconscious or subconsciously to what had gone on. So I wasn't telling my body to, inhale and then scream. It was just doing it on its own. And like you said, I remember I could just see this blurry tunnel that led up to a bright blue sky. And I remember for about 15, 20 seconds, just the screaming over and over and over. And then slowly other systems started to come online. I started to feel my legs. My legs felt like, how when you take 10 milligrams of melatonin and you fall asleep on your arm and it goes numb and it's like painful. It kind of felt like that, except, magnified, 100, 200 times. This extremely powerful numbness. It wasn't pain exactly. It was just this really extreme numbness. And I could feel my legs twitching and that kind of stuff. And I remember, and then I could start to taste like dust in my mouth and dust all in my nose. And there was this very distinct stench that had come to be able to recognize from going to demolition ranges and blowing things up. That always it's this very powerful stench that comes when you go to an area where an explosion has just happened. I could smell that in my nose. So all that lasted for probably about a minute or so, and then I could hear my fellow Marines yelling to me, like, letting me know, we're gonna come and get you. We're on our way. Because the thing is, they couldn't just immediately run over and come and get me because there was probably another IED somewhere in there. So they had to
And
wait for another combat engineer to come over.
at this point, you're bleeding out, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, legs have been severed. I think my legs were actually severed below the knee. And so, yeah, definitely bleeding from two, major arteries. But I think your body does something where if an artery gets cut, it has its own mechanism to stop the bleeding. So, but yeah, I mean, I was losing a lot of blood for sure. Um, so a combat engineer finds me, and while they're doing that, I remember checked my hands, and I was like, all right, my hands are good. And then this is a funny story. I took my right hand and I put it down between my legs to check a very important apparatus that I was concerned about. And I'll be honest with you, I just felt numbness down there. So
Mm.
I thought that I had lost my genitals and everything too. Um, and then I remember shortly after that, I remember I went to sit up. I was like, all right, I'm going to sit up. And then I got about halfway up and I had that thought, what if this is the type of situation where when you're a kid and you skin your knee and it doesn't hurt until you look at it? So I thought to myself, what if I look at my legs and then all of a sudden the pain
Mm.
amplifies into this incredible amount. So I just laid back down and I'm like, I'm just going to wait for these guys to come and get me. And shortly after that,
How long
they
did it
got to
take?
me.
How long did it take for your brothers to come and get you?
I don't think that long. I mean, obviously I didn't have a watch or anything, but I was probably unconscious for maybe 15, 20 seconds. And then I would say they were probably by my side within a minute and a half,
Right.
probably,
Wow.
but it didn't
Because
take long.
they got to tread carefully because more IEDs in that area. Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously they were probably doing a very hasty sweep, of IEDs to get to me. But yeah, they couldn't just come over. They had to make sure because if they step on an IED, then they're hit,
Mm.
and now I'm actually in a worse position because
Mm.
the people that are supposed to be able to help me can't help me anymore because they're all blown apart too. So they had to be very careful. You're right.
So you're laying there and you refuse to look down at your legs. So you have, like, that is pretty incredible in itself, where you just think to yourself, you have that awareness to be like, no, I'm not going to look, because you know it's bad, right? Obviously, you know it's bad.
Yeah.
But you're like, I'm not
I mean,
going
I
to
could
look, and I'm
tell.
not going to.
I knew what had happened. And just intrinsically, based on what I was feeling. I mean, I knew that it was a possibility, and if I stepped on an IED, it's just I had this intrinsic feeling that about what had happened, even though my conscious mind wasn't really able to think yet.
Yeah. So they get over, and then what happens?
Yeah, so they get to me, and immediately they put tourniquets on my legs. I think they put 2 tourniquets on each leg to stop the bleeding. Shortly after that, the corpsman arrived, and I finally got some morphine. So that's when I started feeling, you know, th- uh, sleepy and out of it, and all the senses kind of dulled a little bit. I wasn't feeling as much of that pain anymore, and then I just started rambling. At that point, I started thinking about what my future was going to be like now. 'Cause my conscious mind was back, and I started just thinking about what does this mean for me moving forward. And I envisioned being in a wheelchair forever. I envisioned that I wasn't going to be able to go to the gym anymore. I envisioned that I wasn't going to be able to do any of the stuff that I would like doing. I envisioned that I was just going to be at home, just be an invalid, being taken care of by my mom, like I was some baby, and I was going to be this big burden. And I figured if that's how my life was going to be like, I'd rather just be dead. And so I asked the guys around me, dude, just put a bullet through my grape, just put me out of my misery, just kill me right here. And of course they refused. But and then they're telling me, hey man, you're gonna be okay. They're trying to comfort me and hold my hand and that kind of stuff as the corpsman gets me ready, and they call in, a helicopter to come and get me. And then shortly after that, they finally load me up onto a stretcher. They take the stretcher to this tank, and they put me in the back of the tank. And the last thing I remember before I went unconscious again was just looking up at these Marines looking down on me in the back of this tank. I didn't know who they were. And I don't even remember what their faces looked like. I just remember seeing those guys looking down on me, and then finally the corpsman gave me another shot, and I went unconscious again.
That was it.
And that was it. Yeah, that was it in Afghanistan anyway.
So where did you go after that? So which hospital did you end up? Did you go to Afghan hospital?
I stopped off in Afghanistan at a place called I think it was Bagram. It's just an Air Force base. So, they flew me there to get me stabilized and do any kind of immediate surgeries that they needed to do, adjustments to my legs, that kind of stuff. If there's any infections starting to take hold, they would, get that out of there, debride it out of there. And then they stabilized me, took me, and then I flew to Germany. And I was in Germany for, I don't know, 12 hours. And the same thing. get me stabilized, get me ready for transport, and then they flew me back to Bethesda Naval Hospital, which is in Maryland. And then so the next time I remember waking up was in Germany, and I remember I woke up, and even though I was totally out of it, I was high on, fentanyl and all sorts of painkillers that they were giving me. The only clear thought that I had was that my mom was going to be really upset and really crushed when she heard about what happened to me. And so the only action that I took in that hospital was I asked the nurse to find me a funny hat to wear for when I got back to America. And she probably just thought I was just some crazy hopped up guy on fentanyl, which I was, but I actually did want a funny hat because I figured if the first time my mom saw me when I got back to America, if I was wearing this stupid hat, she would laugh. She would see it. She'd be like, "What the?" And it would just make her feel better. And I was kind of send her the message that, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be the same person. I'm going to be all right. I couldn't find funny hat in that hospital, believe it or not. And, but I got back to America 2 days later, and my mom had found out that I had asked for the funny hat, and somebody brought her a pirate hat, and she gave me a pirate hat instead. So it all worked out in the end.
That's one hell of a fucking time, bro. Jesus, man.
Yeah, that's all 5 days. I was from site of injury back to Bethesda, Maryland was 5 days total.
How quick life can change,
Instantaneously.
Before we delve into like your mindset around, I really want to delve into how you attained this mindset before the incident, but I kind of want to just share the story of how we came about on this podcast. So
Yeah.
you reached out to me, you send me a DM. Obviously I get over 500 DMs a day, right? Man, this is a story. Now, I am not like really spiritual or anything like that. I don't really believe in that kind of shit.
Right.
But the week that you reached out to me, I had an incredible pain in my fucking foot, bro. All week.
Really?
I had a limp in my right foot, on the top of my foot. I've never had this pain before. And I was like, is it my shoe or what? And it was hurting like 3 or 4 days before you reached out. And the crazy thing about this is when I was reading your book, your mum, Carol, was talking about when the Marines came to tell her the news and rocked up the driveway. Can you just tell that story and just make sure I get it right? So what was your mum doing when the Marines came to tell her that her son had just had his legs blown off?
Yeah, so my mom, I'm recollecting what she wrote in the forward, but I think what she said was she had just been to a baby massage class. She's a massage therapist, so she'd just been to a baby massage class, and she was just practicing on this little baby doll, just doing the motions. And she got a call from our neighbor or their neighbor that said, there's some Marines at your gate. They can't get in. You got to unlock the gate. So she gave them the code. And then she was like, why are Marines? And then she realized what they were probably there to do. And she had the reaction that a mother would when 2 Marines are driving down the driveway. And for anybody that doesn't know, typically when somebody is killed overseas, the Marines send 2 Marines to the house of the next of kin, and they deliver the news, and they stay with the person until and give them resources and just kind of give them an idea of what to expect next, I guess, from the Marine Corps perspective. And so she's thinking that I was killed.
Yeah.
And so the Marines pull around, and it's a long drive. It's like a 2-minute driveway to get down. So it's a country, it's a house of the country. So it probably took them a good 2-3 minutes to drive down the driveway. And they pull around, and I remember my stepdad came out, and he basically said, don't tell me anything bad. And they said, look, he's wounded. And at that point, I think there's probably a big sense of relief, but at the same time, it's followed by, oh, he's wounded in some way. But I think that they were all, as much as they were concerned that I had been through this traumatic experience, they were at least happy that I was still alive.
Yeah. So in the book, in the foreword, your mum is massaging the legs of this doll, and she's singing, my legs are long, my legs are strong, my legs are long and strong. And that is crazy, man, because when you messaged me, I opened your message as I was rubbing my fucking foot. And I was feeling sorry for myself, Rob. And I was thinking, my foot is so fucking sore. I tried to walk at the gym. I've got this limp. I was pressing on it as I read your message. I am not fucking shitting you, bro. I did not make this shit up. I was pressing my foot. I read your message. I checked your profile and I was like, you little fucking bitch. What are you worried about? I honestly said to myself, bro, I'm a man of perspective. And I said, at least you've got a foot to massage, motherfucker. That's what I said to myself.
Hey, that's a good perspective.
When I read that, bro, I couldn't believe it. And I had to share that story with you because, like I said, I'm not real spiritual or anything, but that is no word of a lie. And you know what? 2 or 3 days after that, once I had that perspective, the pain in my foot just went away.
Dude, did you ever figure out what it was? That's actually
No.
the most interesting story that's going to happen on this podcast is what was wrong with your foot.
That's not the most interesting. That's not the most interesting. I don't know.
This
man.
podcast just shifted its topic. Now we're going to be talking about your foot.
Well, man, perhaps it's the power of the mind. I don't know, but like it was. I just had that thought in my mind. I was like, man, like your foot's not that bad. Like it was fucking sore to touch, but I don't know. It was just I don't know. It was on the top of my foot. It was weird, but that's not the kind of point. The point is like I just couldn't believe those stories matched up that, you know, your mum got that news and you reached out to me when that was happening. I was just thought that was a mad ass coincidence. And it probably was just a mad ass coincidence, but maybe it was something else. I don't know. It's weird, bro.
Dude, either way, it ended up us recording the podcast today, so I'm thankful that it happened.
100%.
You had to feel a little bit of pain to make this happen.
Yeah.
A little bit of foot.
Just a little, man. Just a little. So looping back to, you know, you're in the hospital bed back there. You're kind of like already thinking positive. And this is something that Wes and I really wanted to delve into. Like with our clients, a lot of the time, you know, things come up as things do in normal life. It's hard to stick to a diet. Life happens, you know, girlfriend breaks up, boyfriend cheats, whatever it may be. Like you've just had your fucking legs blown off and you're thinking, I want to wear a funny hat to make someone else laugh. Like we want to delve like deep.
Mm.
How did you attain this mindset? Was it something that you grew over time in your younger years in the Marines? Was it something that you've always had since you were a kid? Was it a perspective that just switched after your incident? Like what was it?
Yeah, you know, if I had to dumb it down to one thing, it would definitely be it was something that was created within me when I joined the Marine Corps for sure. I wouldn't say that the pre-Marine Corps me would have had that kind of a thought. I think the one thing that I was gifted with at birth was probably some ability to move on quickly. I think that if I had any kind of natural talent, it'd be I can move on from things rather quickly. So I had that, but I think when you join the Marine Corps, the very first thing that you learn in boot camp is that you are not the most important thing in the world. You are basically the least important thing in the world. And the first thing you need to do in all instances is think about your fellow Marines. And that's what being a good Marine is. And if you don't do that, you're not going to be a very good Marine. And I wanted to be a great Marine. And so everything that I did in boot camp, I was thinking of the platoon first. I gave my best effort to make sure that I wasn't the one that was going to make the platoon get punished. And then, but that's just boot camp. That's 13 weeks, and that's a very low risk situation. But I took that mindset and I applied it when I went to Iraq the first time and then Afghanistan. And when you learn it in war, it's life or death in war. And so I saw that not only is it important to put other people first, but it is important to the point that their life is depending on you, putting them before yourself. Especially when I'm finding IEDs. If I don't go through there first, there's a high risk. There's a high likelihood that if they go through first, they're going to step on an IED and get killed. So I have to put my life on the line to protect them. And that is, and so by doing that over and over and over and over again, I think I just intrinsically developed that mindset. And so when that was just my default setting at that point. And so when I stepped on the IED and I was essentially reduced down to my most primal instincts, high on fentanyl, I had been, that close to death, and I was only thinking in the most primal way. That was the thing that rose to the surface when I had that thought about my mom, was that habit, that mindset that had been developed through joining the Marine Corps and going to war and trying to always look out for my fellow Marines. So, and then that's how it manifested in that moment. And so I think the lesson that you can take away here is that even in the most extreme circumstances where you have suffered, you've experienced some of the worst tragedy you can possibly experience, there is always something that you're going to be able to do to help the people that you care about, to help the people that care about you, whether that's just giving them some sort of a sign that you're going to be okay, or whatever it is. There's always something. There's some small thing that you can do that can help another person.
Yeah, that's incredible, man. Fuck. And it's so true. Man, just on that, like, a lot of people become a certain person and they feel trapped because whatever the habits that they've created, over the years, like, how did you give yourself permission to become someone completely new after your injury? Or were you always the same Rob Jones as what you were pre-injury? It was just that you just had no legs.
Yeah, I think that the pre-injury Marine Corps Rob Jones is pretty similar to what I am now. Obviously, I'm 40. I joined the Marine Corps when I was 20, so I've learned a lot of things, gained a lot of wisdom. But I think I was a pretty similar guy before and after. Like I actually forgot the question. What did you ask me again?
I basically said, like, how did you give yourself permission to become someone completely different after the injury? Obviously, a lot of things
Right.
had to change, right? So we're talking about our clients and maybe some people that are listening to this podcast who are trapped in their habits that they've been doing for years and years. Obviously, you may have had the core habits locked in of your mindset before the incident, but like afterwards you had to change things. So how did you give yourself permission to become someone new after the injury?
Yeah, well, there's a couple things there. So part of it is one of the things I realized very quickly after I woke up was I realized that, okay, I'm not going to die. I'm alive. I'm not going to die. So um my my life is going to continue on. And then I also realized that I still wanted to have a good life. I want to have a good life still. That when I woke up in wherever it was, maybe in Maryland or whatever, whenever I started kind of coming out of the coma, I realized I want to have a good life. I'm alive. I'm not going to die. So I want to have a life that is enjoyable. And so I think what I did was sat back and I thought about, well, what is everybody's purpose in life? Is to have a good life, have an enjoyable life, and have a meaningful life. That's like the two things that everybody wants to do. Bring some sort of meaning to the world and enjoy it along the way. And what I was doing in order to achieve that was I was being a Marine. I was going fighting bad guys, and I wanted to keep deploying and stay in the Marine Corps and do all that stuff. So I recognized that path was taken away. So that person that could do that was gone now. I wasn't going to redeploy to Afghanistan with, missing both my legs above the knee. I wasn't going to do that. But as long as I had that mission, with those two very fundamental things, enjoy my life and make it meaningful, I think I realized that there was essentially infinite ways that I could achieve that. I didn't have to, the Marine Corps path wasn't the only one that I could do in order to achieve that goal. And so for me, I didn't know what it was going to be. I didn't know how I was going to achieve that at that time. So what I just started doing was I just started thinking small. I just focused on, all right, my next objective, my next milestone is to be able to get out of my bed. And then it was get out of my bed by myself. And then it was be able to roll my wheelchair around. So I just had all these tiny little steps that I needed to take. And along the way, I started just thinking about well, how can I help this person? How can I help people here? What's something that I might be interested in? And I started just trying stuff. That's kind of how I found out about rowing. I found out about rowing 2 weeks into my recovery. I was Googling how people with disabilities can work out still, and I found out about the Paralympics, and I looked into the Paralympics on my laptop. And I went, "Oh, the Paralympics has all these sports. I didn't even know what is the Paralympics, first off? Oh, it's an Olympics for disabled people. That's me." Being an athlete sounded like a pretty cool thing. So I started just looking into what sports do they have, and I found out, oh, they have rowing. Well, I remember when I worked out, in the gym before, I was always on the concept too, and it was a really hard workout. So maybe rowing would be a good way for me to get some exercise. How does it work? Oh, they have a category for people who only use their arms and back, or their trunk and arms. Like, oh, that's kind of me because I don't have any leg drive. So I just started taking these small steps and trying things and thinking about things. And over time, as I did that, those things started to coalesce more and build and build and build. Um, and so I think that's how I became a new person. I didn't just do it all. I just didn't become that person all of a sudden in some sort of magic wand waving spell. I didn't become that person. I just did it one tiny little step at a time. And along the way, I was like, what might I be interested in? How can I help people? And if I didn't know what to do, well, how can I help somebody? I'll just do something that seems fun, or do something that might help another person. And after I do that thing, you've learned some stuff. Maybe some things have started to go in a certain way, that some things have started to, cobble together so that you can take another step with that. Or maybe I figured out I'm not interested in that or whatever, but things are going to change. And so after you do the thing, you reassess, and there's a whole new landscape, and you just keep going these small iterative steps all along until eventually you've taken enough of those small iterative steps that, yeah, I'm retiring from the Marine Corps, and I'm on my way down to Florida to train for the Paralympics. And so you asked the permission part. I mean, I didn't necessarily need permission because I was a different person, because the IED, it was an involuntary kind of change in that way. But for me, I have I've expressed permission to become a different person, because if you're not growing, then you don't reach your greatest potential in life without changing and growing in some way. So I just give myself express permission to continue to do that, because I want to be the best person I could possibly be, on my deathbed.
Really love that. I've got a question for you, Rob. I think the thing that intrigues me about you the most is your overall attitude. And obviously, going through something like what you've gone through, the recovery process, I can't imagine that would have been a walk in the park.
No, it was
No pun
it was pretty
intended.
challenging.
um, I want to know. I want to delve into your psyche a little bit here, because I think, obviously, what we do, we help people, and a lot of the battle is the mental side, right? We provide the tools and the resources,
Mhm.
and this is how you do it. But at the end, it's the clients, it's the people that are trying to transform and change that have to go, all right, it's time to do that and actually follow through. And so throughout your recovery process, I want to know, because I mean, from the outside and kind of what I've heard you speak about, it sounds like, I mean, obviously your mentality is very strong, but did you find yourself in positions where you did feel sorry for yourself, where you've started to fall into that, perhaps maybe a loop or a spiral of, "Oh, I feel sorry for myself, I'm the victim, poor me"?
I never spiraled. I would say I could probably count the number of times I had these kind of overwhelming, what would I call, recognitions that this was a shitty situation. Um, I could probably count the number of times on two hands. Every now and then that something would happen, like maybe I would fall down somewhere, or I would struggle to do something uh that would kind of trigger me going, man, this just really, really, really sucks that this happened. But it wouldn't last very long, because I would kind of recognize that it happened. And
Mm.
so I can either I can't go back in the past. And like I said before, I still want to have a good life. So yes, did it suck that I lost both my legs above the knee? Yeah, definitely was not what I would have chosen. And if I could snap my fingers and have my legs back now, I would definitely do that. I would get my legs back. Um, but the further I got away from the injury and the more things happened for me, if I could go back now and change anything that happened, I definitely wouldn't, because I've had an incredible life, and I have an incredible life, that I want to keep living. So I wouldn't go back and change anything. But I think, yeah, so for me, it was just the recognition that I can't change the past, and the future is still that I want to have a good life.
Mm.
And I just need
Yeah.
to do what I need to do to achieve that, even if it means that I have to humble myself, I have to look stupid, I have to embarrass myself, and I just have to do what I gotta do because I wanna have a good life.
That's mad, yeah. Man, this leads me into another great question of taking responsibility. So, how do you, in your mind, how do you take full responsibility for outcomes that were never your fault? You were never supposed to get your legs blown off in Afghanistan. So, how do you take full responsibility for that?
Yeah, so if I r look, this is the you're a Jocko fan, so you know about the concept of extreme ownership. And so when there is this point at which, yes, you can't take ownership of something that's happened, there's certainly sometimes that does happen, but the number of times that that happens is so rare, but people tend to uh, apply. They tend to assume that they couldn't have done anything a lot more often than they should have. So I mean, if we look back and examine, so there's two parts of this. So when something happens, what you want to do is you want to look back at what happened, analyze it, figure out what you did wrong, how you can take ownership of that. That's what saying that taking ownership of that is saying, this is what I screwed up. So then you can take that lesson and apply it moving forward so that it doesn't happen again, and you fix whatever the problem is that you created. That's what you're trying to do. So now I'm never going to be finding IEDs again. But if I were to take a look and analyze what I did wrong in trying to find that IED, I could find all sorts of things that maybe I could have done better. Could I have taken a step back and analyzed the situation differently and just found a better path around that? Maybe I rushed a little bit. Maybe I picked that path a little bit too quickly. Maybe I didn't train enough. Maybe I didn't train in the right way. Maybe I set my metal detector sensitivity a little bit too low, or I misread the feedback that my metal detector was giving me. So even in that type of a situation where one could say that you didn't do anything wrong, I could find all these things that I could have done better. But so I say that to exemplify that when we talk about extreme ownership, that's how extreme we can get to about taking extreme ownership. And then the other part of this is, well, what are you going to do moving forward? How are you going to fix the problem moving forward? And in this type of situation, yeah, I can't magic my legs back on, but what I can do is I can take ownership of how I respond to what happened to me. I can take ownership of my attitude towards it. I can take ownership of what I choose to do with my circumstances, how I choose to react to it, and what I'm going to do to make my life a good life.
Yeah.
So you take ownership, you take full responsibility of your actions starting now, moving forward. That's what you can do.
I want to ask another question that leads into this, which I think I know the answer, but I just want to make sure that everyone listening is picking up what you're putting down. So when you see people quit over inconvenience instead of adversity, what do you think they're really avoiding?
When they quit over inconvenience instead of true adversity, I think ultimately what they're avoiding is it's not what they're avoiding, it's what they're letting win. What they're letting win is the natural human tendency to want to take the easy road, to take the easy path, to make things easy for themselves. And another part, so I mean, we all have that. Human beings, I mean, pretty much all animals have this intrinsic instinct of self-preservation that comes from being able to conserve their energy and do the easiest thing. But human beings, we have big brains, and so we can override a lot of that. So when you give into these little uh these little inconveniences, what you're doing is you're giving into you're letting uh that instinct win, but you're also using your brain to rationalize why that's the right thing. Oh, no, I should quit because of this, because of these 3 things. So your brain is kind of working against you in that way. Um, and then another part of that is definitely your ego. Part of it is when you're in a situation where you're kind of new to something or it might not work out, that creates fear generated by your ego because you don't want to be embarrassed. You want to be embarrassed that you told everybody that you're going to lose 300 pounds or 200 pounds or 50 pounds or whatever it is. And then it turns out that you quit. So you just kind of rationalize this reason why, oh, that was a stupid thing to want to do anyway. And so I think that's probably what it is. You're
So what's the
rationalizing a
first
reason to do that.
what's the first step someone can take for letting go of the ego, letting go of their excuses and taking ownership? Like, what is the first step that someone should take in their mind moving forwards into their next inconvenience?
What you have to be able to do is what we call detach. You have to train yourself and teach yourself to detach from these automatic responses. So what that means is being aware. So you have to, before you start any kind of endeavor, you kind of have to be aware of the things that you might tell yourself when you get to a point where you have to make a decision about, am I going to eat the cupcake or am I going to eat this, some scrambled eggs for breakfast? And so you have to be aware of these things, and um, you have to have some sort of system in place to recognize that I'm starting to get driven by my ego. I'm starting to get driven by that intrinsic instinct uh, to take the easy path. Recognize that, and then have some sort of action that you can take to interrupt that feedback loop. So maybe it's I don't know what it would be. I don't really have a whole lot of cravings, but maybe I start to recognize that I see a cupcake and I start to think, start to negotiate with myself, like, oh well, okay, I'll save that for my cheat day, or as long as I eat really good for a week, I can have that cupcake or whatever it is. So that's my little tell that I'm starting to lose my grip on discipline. And at that point, my action could be just throw the thing away in the garbage. So you have to be able to link that awareness of what you do, detach from those feelings, and then take an action to push yourself past that little cliff.
Mm. Man, you're in the business of leadership. You work for Echelon Front. You talk to people, you go into businesses, you teach them leadership, and you find where their problems are. Now, a lot of people like to make excuses, right? And they say that excuses are just well-planned lies. But out of able-bodied people, so people that haven't lost their legs, what is the one excuse that least makes sense to you, given what you've been through and what you've done?
The biggest excuse that least makes sense. I think one of the things I hear, I don't know if this is the one that's coming to my mind right away. And if you give me more time, I might be able to think of a better answer. But the one that I hear the most often, when I was running the monthly marathons, I would be out there and I'd be talking to people. I'd take a break, and somebody would inevitably come up to me and they'd say, I can't believe you're running 31 marathons in 31 days. I can't even run one marathon. And it always kind of struck me when people said that. And if I was in an especially talkative mood, I might analyze that for a minute with them, and I say, "Oh, have you ever tried to run a marathon?" And they're like, "No, I haven't tried to run a marathon." And I said, "Well, let me ask you this." And this is kind of extreme, but I said, "Let me ask you this: do you have kids?" And they would go, "Yeah, I have kids." And I would go, "If somebody had a gun to your kid's head, do you think you could run a marathon?" And they went, "Yeah, probably. I probably could." And I went, "So really, it's not about ability. It's just about having a purpose strong enough that gets you out there." And so the excuse that I hear is, I can't do that without even even having tried. Without even maybe they have tried. Maybe they have tried, but they haven't tried everything. They tried like one time, or they ran 5 miles and it really hurt, and they decided, well, this it'd be impossible for me to run a marathon. So I think the excuse or the tendency is for people just to assume that they can't do things because essentially they just don't want to. They just don't have a powerful enough purpose behind doing that thing. And I'm not sitting here telling people that you should want to run a marathon. You don't have to run a marathon, but don't lie to yourself and say that you can't do things because of your inability to do it. Just tell the truth to yourself that I just don't have a powerful enough purpose, and maybe if I did, I could probably do it.
Right on. That's so fucking good, man. That's so true, like whether that be losing 10 kilos, whether that be doing a park run, whatever it be, it doesn't have to be like running a marathon, like you said. It's just all comes back to your purpose, your why. And at the end of the day, like you said, gun to the kid's head, you're going to make that thing work.
Yeah, you just have to be able to figure out how you can tie like I said earlier, you have to be able to tie that extremely powerful feeling, love for other people, tie that all the way back down into what I have to do in this moment. So if it's getting out of bed early in the morning and going to work out, you're not going to want to do that. But if you wake up and you go, I'm doing this because I want to be able to see my grandchildren grow up or something like that. I want to be able to help my kids with their kids when they're older so I can be a good grandparent to them. Then that's what gets you out of bed.
Hmm. I think this is a good time to bring this in. You say every day you get out of bed, you got to put your legs on, and you got to put your legs on every single day, depending on what task you've got to do. You've got a different set of legs. And that's one thing that
Yeah.
stood out when I read your book. It's like, you got to put your legs on. Every day you've got to put your legs on. And even if we have legs, you've still got to put them on. And it goes much deeper than that. So do you want to explain that for us?
Yeah, so what I write about in the book is just what you just said, the fact that every morning if I want to do anything with my day, if I want to get out of bed at all, I have to put legs on. That's the default thing. And so essentially that call to get out of the bed, we all receive some sort of call to action from our lives, from the universe or from the people that we care about or from ourselves, our own objectives. We're all constantly receiving calls to take action, to do things, to live up to our greatest potential in life. And a lot of the times that call is not going to come. The vast majority of the times, it's not going to come at a time where you're ready for it or you want to do the thing that you have to do, or if the circumstances are fair, or the circumstances are perfect. You're hardly ever going to get a call to action that aligns perfectly with everything that you want to do. So, but you still have to take action. You still have to answer that call. In order to do that, for me, what I have to do is I have to get up, I have to put my legs on, and I have to go do the thing. And then if another call comes, I got to change my legs and I got to put a different kind of legs on and do that thing. And so, yeah, most people don't have prosthetic legs that they have to put on, but they all have to, everybody receives those calls to action and they have to metaphorically put their legs on. They have to decide, set themselves up to do the thing that they have to do in their life to make their life what they want it to be and to help the people around them. So that's what I mean when I say if you don't have prosthetic legs, you still have to put your legs on. You got to answer the call to action.
100%. If someone's listening to this, man, and I get this all the time over my DMs, and people say, I know what to do, but I just can't stay consistent. Like, I know what I should be doing. Like, I'm sure you hear that all the time, right? Like, what are they lying to themselves about? Like, when people say that to you, what do you believe that lie is?
I think it's going to depend on the person, but I think what you're saying right there is actually what's happening is they're lying to themselves in some way. They're telling themselves a falsehood, and they're buying into it. So they're making an excuse. I think it's going to depend on the person, but the fundamental thing that's happening is they are believing something that is not true, and they're telling themselves the lie. They're telling themselves the lie themselves, and a lot of the times it's probably just going to be your ego. So really, probably what the lie is centered around their own fears, their own their own fears that are generated by their ego, whether it's that they just don't want to fail, they're afraid of the effort that it's going to take, they're afraid of the pain that they're going to have to endure. Um, so that's what it is. They're just lying to themselves in some way. And if you can somehow detach from that lie, detach from your ego and see the truth, that's where you guys come in probably. They say, well, you can ask them some questions and get to the bottom of the lie that they're telling themselves. That's why it's good to have a good coach like you guys, or to have a confidant that you can tell your lies to and they can dispel them for you and be like, that's not even true. But yeah, you're not gonna be able to be disciplined unless you tell yourself the real truth.
And I think what a lot of people have got to do, man, is change their perspective and get out of that victim mentality. And one of the powerful things that I've done over the years is actually, like I was saying to you before we even started this call, I believe, is kind of like putting myself in the position as well as I can of someone like yourself. So if you're sitting there and you are aware enough to say, yeah, you know what, that is me, go and buy Rob's book, put your legs on and read that, and be grateful that you can step out of your bed every single morning. And no matter what a task you got to do throughout the day, you don't have to change your legs. Like, that's perspective right there.
Yeah, having a good dose of perspective like that is definitely helpful. I mean, I think we said this. Yeah, I mentioned it to you earlier when I was in the physical therapy clinic. I was in there with people that were quadruple amputees. I was in there with people that were blind. I was in there with people that were double hip disarticulations, which means they had absolutely no leg whatsoever. They were amputated all the way up to the hip. And so I saw a lot of people that I would consider. I looked at them and I'm like, I'm actually kind of or I saw, guys that had even double above knee amputees, but really high. I have relatively long stumps. I would look at those guys and I would go, I'm actually not doing too bad over here. And so, yeah, having a dose of perspective is a good way. And if you can find that for yourself, that could be a good mechanism for you to be able to detach from these lies that you're telling yourself. Like, oh, my situation is so awful. But then you can look at this person and go, all right, well, if that person made it through, then maybe I can make it through this.
Can you tell us the gas station joke that you used to do up in your stand-up?
Oh, the convenience store? Oh, let me see
The
if I can
convenience
remember
store,
it.
yeah, it
Dude,
was
I
a
haven't
gas
done that in a
convenience
long
store, yeah,
time.
yeah.
I'm gonna butcher it because I haven't done it in a while, but let's how did it go? I was in this convenience store at the hospital one time, and I was in line with this guy behind this guy that had his arm in a cast, and he was looked over to his friend, and he goes, "Man, this cast is so painful. It's itchy." Ugh." At least, that's how he sounded to me. And so I looked at him and I put on the smuggest face I could muster, and I said, "Sucks to be you, bro." And he turned around to me and he goes, yeah, well, oh." And I went, "Yeah, that's right. You don't know what pain is like. I'm a double above the amputee." And I spit on him. And then I turned around to high five the guy behind me to celebrate. And there was a quadruple amputee standing right behind me that had been there the whole time. And he said, "Sucks to be you, bro." And I went, "Yeah, well, oh." And then behind him, there was just a head in a jar. That's the punchline.
Yeah, I love that shit, bro.
I don't know.
And
Maybe
that
I've still
fucking
got what it
ties
takes.
into
Maybe
perspective, man. Like, that is so
yeah.
relevant as to what we were just talking about, like, man, your problems aren't actually problems. Like, it's perspective of where you're currently at.
And then you have to still balance that with what you said earlier too. Like, everybody's hard is their own hard. So everybody's life experiences they are what they are. And so you can't allow I can't go to my son who scraped his leg earlier climbing on a wood pile, or scraped his arm earlier, and say, "Suck it up, Harry. I've lost both my legs above the knee. You don't even know what pain is like." How? Because this is the scratch on his arm is like the worst thing he's ever experienced. So the worst thing you've ever experienced is the worst thing. I mean, that's a common thing that people say. So you just have to balance those two things, maintain your perspective, but just recognize that everybody's life is what it is, and the certain things that matter to certain people, these are the things that matter to them.
Mm. That's exactly right. And I think that's one tool that I've personally used over the years is, you know, like I've said once on this podcast already, is like surrounding myself with as much perspective as possible. You know, Can't Hurt Me, David Goggins, Jocko Willink, Extreme Ownership, you know, all of his books, your book, like trying to put myself in people's shoes that have gone through much more than me gives great perspective when things don't go right or when I'm having a shitty day. I call upon these resources that I've experienced, not physically, but mentally. I've, opened my mind up enough to think, wow, there's people out there that are in a lot worse position than what I am right now.
Yeah, and it's just a great way to maintain your humility too. I mean, you think even if like this, if I thought I was super awesome for running all those marathons, yeah, I could look at a guy like David Goggins, or I could look at a guy like all these other people, like Terry Fox, who ran across Canada. I could look at all these things, and be like, yeah, I could probably do even more. Or if you're successful in business, you could look at Jeff Bezos or whatever and see, man, that's even better than I could do. So yeah, I think perspective is definitely a good way to keep yourself humble, and that's extremely important because if you're not humble, then you're not going to improve. You're not going to assess yourself. You're not going to listen to anybody. You're not going to do. It's going to hold you back. So maintaining that humility is really important.
Wes, you got some questions, bro?
Dude, I'm
Before we
just
get
honestly,
No?
I'm just in sitting here in awe, just listening to you, Rob. No, it really, I mean, because I'll be honest, like in comparison, what I've experienced inside of life is you'd look at me and just be like, "You're a little baby, Wes," and I was like, "Yes, I am," So no, I just appreciate you. I just appreciate having, being able to be in a position where I can sit here and actually listen to you speak about these things, and it does change perspective. Also it creates gratitude, I think, and that's an important aspect as well. Is it's hearing these, I guess, looking at yourself and being like, well, man, there are so many other people that have had it harder than me and have still been able to succeed and create amazing things inside of their life. And yeah, so it comes back to gratitude for me. Like, I think that's the first thing that kind of pops up. It's kind of like, when you fall sick, you get a cold or something, and then you think about all the times that you weren't sick, and you're like, "Oh, I wish I took advantage of not being sick," So it's kinda like that. That's awesome.
Yeah, man, you gotta be. If you're not thankful for what you have, then you're not really going to truly see what you have. And in order to do something with what you have to have a fair, honest assessment of what is available to you, and be thankful for that, and utilize that, and figure out a way that you can help people with what you have. So yeah, that's great. That's a solid point about gratitude.
Absolutely.
Man, when you were kind of coming up with all these ideas after you'd had your legs blown off, did you just think to yourself, I need to find the hardest shit? Like, what made you want to fucking run 31 marathons in 31 days? Like, first of all, tell us how you came to that number and how long after you had your legs blown off did you do these marathons?
Yeah, so I always had since I joined the Marine Corps, I always had a strong desire to want to push my physical and mental limitations, and do incredibly difficult things. Um, and that certainly tied into why I decided to do the month marathon. So I had done the Paralympics, I had done the bike ride across the country, and after the bike ride, I didn't really have a plan on what I wanted to do next. So actually the options I had decided were stand-up comedy or trying to go to the Paralympics again. And one of the things that happened at the Paralympics the first time was I met a beautiful girl named Pam, who was a rower as well, and she was continuing on. She's a rower from England, so she was continuing on to compete for Rio. So I decided that maybe what I should do is try and make the Paralympics again in 2016 because we were dating. She living in England, and so maybe we could go to the Paralympics again. That'd be kind of fun. And so I wanted to compete in the sport of triathlon, and I want to get into a whole lot of the details, but it didn't turn out well at all. There's a reason that that's not in any of my bios online, is because it was a complete failure. I didn't even come remotely close. But part of the reason for that was that I was competing in a category in which I had to ride a regular bicycle and run using running prostheses, and the other people in that category were single above knee amputees, so they had one fully intact leg. So they would absolutely destroy me on the bike. One of the things I noticed was that I would actually destroy them on the run. Now, it wasn't enough time for me to catch up or anything, but I'd be beating them by 4 minutes on the 5K. And that kind of made me start to realize I was clocking some pretty fast times for my 5K. I think my fastest 5K was 18 minutes. And so I was doing a pretty respectable 5K. And that kind of made me remember that I had always had kind of a natural talent for running ever since elementary school. I was always one of the fastest kids in my class. And then by the time it turned, I decided it's time to call it quits on the Paralympics. This isn't going to work out. This isn't going to happen. I remember it was probably March or April of 2016. And I was just riding my bike around in Salt Lake City where I was training, trying to think about, now, what should I do now? This whole thing just failed. And when I was on my bike ride, I was thinking about this observation that I've been making for the last few years, and that was that the perception of veterans in America have been shifting slightly in a weird way. In 2001 and 2003, when the wars were starting, all veterans were seen as these heroic individuals that were strong, indomitable people. But by the time 2016 rolled around, we were all being seen as broken heroes. It was like I couldn't think of a movie or a TV show or a news story or even a song where the veteran character didn't have 1,000-yard stare. It didn't have some sort of PTSD. Didn't have some sort of psychological problem that was created by when they had went to war. And the thing that bothered me about that wasn't me. That wasn't my story. And statistically speaking, it wasn't the story of the vast majority of veterans. Most veterans go to war and they experience hell over there, and then they come back and they process it and they go on to live normal lives and they're fine. There's some people that do experience, difficulty in processing what they had seen, but the vast majority of people just come back and live normal lives. And that story wasn't really being told. And so what I needed to do is I needed to take ownership of that problem, and I needed to create a story. I needed to create a story that about a veteran that experienced trauma overseas and came back, and instead of being destroyed by it, it made him stronger. And I became better because of that traumatic experience. And I wanted everybody to be able to see that story. And I figured the only way that I could get that story out there was for news media organizations to cover something that I was doing. And I figured, what's something that people wouldn't expect a veteran, a double above knee amputee to do? Run. Let alone run a marathon, let alone run back to back for 31 days marathon. So I figured what I needed to do was do something so insane that people couldn't believe that I was doing it, that the news organizations couldn't help themselves but tell the story. And so I figured I was going to run a bunch of marathons. That's all I figured on. And so I went back and I told Pam about my idea. And of course, she said that she thought I was crazy, but she figured I could probably do it. And she said, well, when you say a bunch, how many are you going to do? And then we started this discussion about, well, how many should I do? I figured maybe I'll do 22 because that's a number that's associated with veteran suicides. But then I thought to myself, it's not really enough, because by the time I get rolling, the marathon challenge is going to be ending. So I need to do more. And I said, well, what about 50? And she said, well, that's probably too many because people aren't going to pay attention for 50 days. Case in point, the Iron Cowboy who ran 50 Ironmans in 50 states in 50 days, I was following him, and by the time he finished, I was saying to myself, oh, he's still doing that? I didn't even pay attention to him. So people don't pay attention to anything for 50 days straight. So I said, well, people could pay attention for a full month. And she was like, yeah, probably. So I'll just do a month. And the longest month is 31 days. And so that's how I decided on the number. And I figured I should do it all in different cities so the most people would see it. I just wanted everybody to see the story. I wanted that as many people to see the story as possible. I didn't care if they remember my name. I didn't care about anything else. I was raising money for veteran charities as well, but I just wanted them to see the story so that they just knew about this possibility. And so I figured I'd run in 31 of the most populous cities in America, one in London, one in Toronto. And that's what I did. So I would run, hop in the RV, drive to the next city, wake up, run, hop in the RV, drive to the next city over and over and over again.
Fucking hell.
What was your lowest point? What was your lowest point in those 31 days? Or did you have a low point where you're like, man, I don't think I can fucking do this? Or were you just like, I'm prepared to die. I'll get this done.
I'll tell you what I'll tell you is my expectation about how it was going to go was I was going to run in London. It's my first marathon. And then every marathon after that was just going to get slower and slower and harder until the 31st one, Washington, D.C. I was just going to be crawling across the finish line like a guy crawling out of the desert or something. And that was going to be how it would go. But the interesting thing that happened was I actually got faster for the first 10 and then just kind of leveled out. So even in that extreme circumstance, I adapted to the stress for those first 10 days and then just kind of leveled out. And I would say my lowest point was probably Dallas, Texas. And for everybody that doesn't know about Texas, Southern Texas, it gets hot sometimes. And so I came through Dallas. So I went London, Philadelphia, then I started going counterclockwise around the country, went up to Seattle, down to California, and then sort of cycled back around to Texas. And I was going to do San Antonio, Houston, Dallas. And actually Houston was the toughest one. It was the low point because it was a heat wave, and I did San Antonio, and it was pretty muggy, pretty hot, but I was okay. Then I woke up in Houston the next day, and it was 100% humidity at 6 a.m. when I woke up. I was sweating like crazy, and heat really takes a toll on me because my legs are encased in carbon fiber, so they're not breathing. So I'm not sweating. I'm only sweating from the upper half of my body, and you guys probably know how the repercussions of that. And then also the more heat that gets into my socket, the more friction there is. Blisters started to form. So I had this kind of overwhelming heat that I had to deal with, and then blisters started to form in my stumps. And so by the end of Houston, I was absolutely wiped. And I had blisters on my stumps, and like basically every marathon after that was, kind of what I imagined before. It was just a struggle bus. I mean, I took 2 miles in the morning before my legs just stopped hurting from running. I think I was taking, 4 Tylenol, 4 Advil every morning just to try and help with it. Which obviously is not healthy whatsoever, not good to do. But there was never a point where I was sitting there saying to myself, I don't think I'm going to be able to finish. There was certainly a sense that I don't know if I will be able to. I'm uncertain about if I can, but I was never sitting there thinking to myself, I definitely am not going to be able to do this. And really, the one thing that I did know is that if I was gonna make sure that I kept winning against that inner terrorist that I talk about in the book, the only way that I could keep winning was to go out there and see if I could run a marathon every day. And I did it. Finished in DC, November 11th, which is Veterans Day here. Remembrance Day for you guys, I think.
Yeah.
In Washington, D.C., running around all the war memorials. And it was a really cool full circle moment because people from my entire life were there. My nurses from the hospital were there. My physical therapists were there. My prosthetist was there. My family, my friends, people I served with, and they all got to see me finish and complete
Amazing.
this really incredible experience. Yeah, it was awesome, man.
Mm.
There was a time on your runs where you were running through, was it a Buds where you were running through and everyone passed, or what was that?
Yeah, so I was in Coronado. And when I was running in San Diego, I ran on Coronado Island, which is where Navy SEALs do buds training. And yeah, I think you're going to tell the story about I was running back and forth on this trail, and the buds. I think it's the class leader. I asked Jocko about this. This was a class leader. When they see a senior, when they see another instructor when they see a BUD/S instructor or they see a senior person in the Navy, they have to greet them in some way. They have to say, instructor so-and-so. And then the class leader says it, and then the whole class repeats them. So this guy took a big chance, and I don't know how he found out about. I think maybe my wife told him they had crossed paths with us a couple times. Somehow he found out about who I was, and he went, Rob Jones, and then the entire BUD/S class went, Rob Jones. So that was pretty cool.
That's sick.
That's sick. How did that make
What I
you
like to
feel?
say is, well, that made me feel. I sped up after that. I was going slow, and I just sprinted for a while. It definitely motivated me. It was one of the cooler experiences that I had on the month marathons. There's a lot of little small experiences like that, and I got a cool video of it. What I like to say is that was the only BUD/S class that had no quitters whatsoever, 100% graduation rate because of me.
Comes back to perspective, bro, doesn't
Comes
it?
back
They're
to
all looking there like,
perspective.
boys, we got our legs. We ain't fucking ringing that bell and quitting, man. Fuck that.
Yeah, I know. Getting wet and sandy sounds pretty good for getting your legs blown off.
Perspective, man. That's what we've been speaking about, right? And I'm sure it was a large contributor to no one failing in that BUD/S class, man, for sure.
Yeah, man. You got to have a good perspective on just everything. You got to be able to tell yourself the truth. If you can't tell yourself the
100%.
truth, then every decision you make is just gonna be in the wrong direction because you're starting from a point of lies.
Wes, have you got any questions for Rob before we get into a couple of fucked up questions?
I think we're good. I think I'm feeling these fucked up questions.
You want the
Oh
fucked up
man,
questions?
it's
They're
gonna
not
be
even that
crazy.
fucked
It's gonna
up.
be
I'm
wild.
trying to find good ones today.
Matt, pull some.
One popped
Matt,
up
pull
that
some
was
bad ones
actually,
sometimes.
huh?
I was just saying, you pull some bad ones sometimes that I don't feel like I should be answering. But
Yeah, I know.
I've heard a few
Well,
of them.
This one is actually quite relative to you, Rob. This is
All
a
right, here
genuine
we go.
question, man. I pulled this card out of a massive deck of cards. So these are answer the internet questions, Barstool Sports. I'm sure a lot of people listening know who Barstool Sports are.
Yeah.
Questions as fucked up as you are, they are. So this one here, would you rather lose a leg or never be able to have sex again?
Lose a leg. It's not that bad.
Would you rather lose two legs
that
or
big of
never
a
have
deal.
sex again?
So I'd
Easy
go
question,
two.
right?
I'd
What
go
about
two.
you, Wes? I think we've got to say lose a leg.
yeah,
Team
well, I
Rob.
mean, if Rob's second thing that you checked was to see if your thing was still there?
Groin. Yeah.
Yeah.
You actually write in the book,
Yeah.
is it one of the Marines say, you still got a dong, you're going home, or something like that when
You
you're
still
like,
got it. Yeah. I think I said to them, like, I think my dick is gone, and they were like, dude, I will touch it for you. It's there. I'm like, oh, thank God.
isn't it crazy? Like in that moment, like you're in hell and you try to think of something that's like, try to bring you up a little bit. You're like, thank fuck for that.
Yeah. I mean, it's little victories, dude. And the other thing, the other little victory there was that I asked them if my amputation was above or below the knee, and they told me it actually was, and it was below the knee at the site of injury. So they said, yeah, it's below the knee, and so that was another little victory for me. But come to find out, ultimately it had to be above the knee, and that happens because of infections. And the orthopedic surgeons probably looked at my legs and went, we were not going to be able to put prosthetics on this, so he's going to be better off if we amputate higher.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta find those small victories, dude.
Is Pam your wife? Pam's your wife, right?
Yeah, we've been married since 2017. She moved over from England. We got married in Las Vegas.
Now these are fucked up questions. I'm not going to ask anything inappropriate, but if you had a gun to your head and you had to pick one food for Pam to chew up and spit back into your mouth, what would you pick?
For him to chew up and spit back into my mouth. Oh my God, dude.
What's wrong?
Oh man, it's got to be something that doesn't. It's got to be something that can't have too unique of a. No, some foods have like a flavor when somebody's
Yeah.
it's on their breath. Be like,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, not like tuna or anything like that.
Yeah, no onions.
And maybe something like ground beef or something, because that's already kind of chewed up in a way.
That's actually a good answer.
I was thinking like
Ground
rice
beef, I
noodles.
don't know.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Maybe ice cream.
Oh
Yeah, because
yeah.
it's like a milkshake.
Yeah, ice cream.
That's yeah.
Yeah, but that's
I think
I would
I
prefer
think I
not
would.
to do that though.
Yeah, it's not a preference, right? Not into that. Some people would be. All right, a
Fortunately.
couple more. If you had to pick one person to be an ambassador to meet, if you had to pick one person to be the ambassador for the human race to meet aliens, who would that be?
Ooh, Jocko. I think I'd go Jocko.
Why? Why would you
I think
pick
he would
Jocko?
represent us
Fuck,
very
man,
well.
he was
Because
my
I
pick.
think that we would want the aliens to think that we were super tough and
Yeah,
badass, and I can't really think of a better representation of that. So they would just know that, don't fuck with us, all right? Because this is what humans are like. They're Jocko.
I
And
couldn't
they'd be
think
like,
of a better
and
person,
maybe we're
honestly,
not
bro.
gonna.
What about you, Wes? Have you got anyone that you would?
Jeez, I don't know. I was gonna. I mean, first person that came to my mind was Trump, just because.
Oh my God. I don't know about that one, dude.
Yeah, no, you know what? The first thing that came to my mind,
right there.
the first thing that came to my mind is like definitely someone not like Trump.
Yeah, we need some delicacy there. I think it needs to be handled with a little bit of delicacy that he does not have. Oh man.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think Jocko probably would be the best, because he would be thinking strategically. He's an expert in leadership, so he would know what to do. I'd leave it in his hands, and then if he said we're going to war, then I'd get my machine gun and go to war.
Yeah, let's go. Oh shit, these questions are so fucked up.
That last one wasn't that bad.
Right? All right, we're all straight males here, guys, but this is going to be the last question I'm going to finish the podcast on. We've got to make them inappropriate because that's why we love these questions, right? But would you rather give the first 99% or the last 1% of a blowjob if you had to?
Oh, come on, dude. Oh, man.
That is a fucking tough question.
That is not
and
good.
I don't feel comfortable thinking about it.
Let's take the...
you have to go first, Matt. You're the host.
Well... It depends how long it is, I suppose. Not the dick, but the actual.
Yeah, I guess the circumstances of the last 1%.
I don't know. As a straight male, that is a hard question to answer. Let's say it's a 2-minute blowjob. Oh man, that's a fucking that is a fucked up
2
one.
minutes is a long time.
Yeah, when you're doing that.
Yeah,
it's a long time.
You're doing
As a straight male. Oh man!
Come on, Matt.
Is anyone going to answer it or what?
We're waiting for you, Matt.
Oh well, fuck. I think I'd just take the load and spit it out.
God, dude.
Get it done. Get in, get out.
Yeah.
Oh my God, dude.
Rip the Band-Aid.
Like, not that there's anything wrong with that, like whatever, but like it's less painful just to get in and get out, right?
Right. Dude, I think I would just go option 3, death.
Yeah. Oh shit, man. Do you want to ask one more, or should we leave it at that? Where's it? You've got to answer.
Yeah, I went with option what Rob said, death. Let's go.
I agree.
Not a fucking. You boys have got to man up and answer the damn question.
No, I agree with you, Matt. It'd have to be in, out, and then try and not think about it.
Yeah. All right, we're going to end on... I'll go one more. So last one. Would you rather be good looking and always have nice clothes but smell like shit, or a homeless person but smell really nice?
Ooh, I'd go homeless. I don't really care about wearing nice clothes. And I figure you could probably turn your life around if you smelled good. You can still meet somebody.
Yeah.
Smelling good.
But if you don't smell good.
Smelling good is like you're halfway there. Like you got to be, even if you are homeless, like if you're smelling good, then that means you care enough to, get your life back on track.
Yeah,
you
you
only
could
tend
probably
to smell
people
like
be
shit
less
as
turned away.
if you don't care, right? Like you
I
smell people. What do you reckon?
I immediately dislike people that smell. Like I just can't.
You dislike,
understand.
you actively dislike them.
Yeah, like, well, I mean, like, if I've met you and you smell bad, it's like, I don't know, I don't like you.
Well, it depends on
Do
the
they have to
circumstances, right?
consistently smell bad, like a lot, or is it just one? You catch one bad whiff and that's it? Or do
Think
they
of
have to
like,
smell bad all the time?
yeah, it's obviously like
Okay,
gym, sweaty, whatever. You stink, but like if you just always
Mm.
smell bad, and I've met a few
Right.
people that always smell bad, I don't like you.
Yeah, look, I think it's conditional. Like if you're doing 31 marathons in 31 days, there's going to be time during that you're probably not going to smell the best. But I don't think the gym's an excuse. If you go to the gym and you're there for 1 hour, if your hygiene's up to scratch, you shouldn't be smelling in that hour. Do you know what I mean? So if I run into Rob when he's out running a marathon and he's halfway through and he's all jacked up and fucking, 25 kilometers in, I'm going to expect some stench. That's acceptable. But if you walk past me and you stink in the gym, I'm like, man, you're not squared away with your hygiene. What the fuck are you doing? Like, I just feel like a lot of people that smell are lazy.
I don't know what makes, yeah, but either way, I think I'd go smelling
I go
good.
the homeless.
Yeah,
I'd
I'd
smell
go.
good and look
I don't need
homeless.
to be wearing nice clothes. I don't care about nice clothes, personally.
Nah, man. I wear the same old shit every single day, man. I don't care about
Oh
nice
yeah, you
clothes.
wear the same
Black
black
shirts.
gloves, and you wear black gloves all the time, right?
Oh, I haven't got them on now, but yeah. Black shirt, black shorts, white socks. Decision fatigue is not a thing in my mind anymore. I just wear the same shit every single day, man. It's so
There you
freeing.
go.
I just don't have to think, man. It's so good. But
Yeah,
I think that is a great way to kind of wrap up the podcast. But Rob, people listening, where can they find you on socials and where can they buy your book, Put Your Legs On?
yeah. So I'm on Instagram at Rob Jones Journey. I'm on LinkedIn too, Rob Jones. And my book, Put Your Legs On, is on Amazon, and you can get it anywhere. I think. You got it in Australia. Sent you a copy. There you go. Wes, you're getting it. Where are you again?
I'm in Bali.
Bali,
So-
and it's coming.
Yeah, yeah. So I've
All
actually
right.
ordered
There you
it
go.
to go to Australia, but I'm heading to Australia soon. Pick it up there.
Okay. There you go. Okay. But yeah, I've heard people get in the UK, can get it anywhere. But yeah, it's on Amazon. Put Your Legs On.
Sweet as, man. Well, Rob, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. And thank you so much for giving us some insight into your mindset and how to overcome adversity in its greatest form, I would like to think. So, man, thank you so much for taking the time out to join us today and have a chat. And hopefully the people listening have picked up that their life isn't that bad and they just need to put their legs on every single day and everything will be okay.
Well, you know what? Even if their life is really bad, if they start thinking about how they can help people, then that's how they can improve their life. And yeah, man, I mean, I really just hope this podcast helps people. And thank you to you guys. I mean, you didn't have to reply to my message. You get 500 messages a day. You didn't have to have me on the podcast. You got a huge platform. So I'm really thankful that you were gracious and generous enough to have me on and talk to me.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks for casting that juju shit on me and making my foot ache. So I read your message.
That's funny. And now we are best friends.
We are best friends now. All right, Rob. Thank you so much. And thanks, guys, for listening. Look forward to episode 4 coming up.
Thanks, guys.